So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, let me present to you a brief history of PNM's corruption since 1962. Over the last 60 years, and the billions and billions PNM caused to be stolen and corruptly spent. I have to say this because the younger generations do not know this. Those from 1962, we want to educate the young generation on PNM corruption since 1962, since the days of Dr. Eric Williams. And if we estimate it, more than close to $500 billion, $500 billion have been corruptly spent by PNM and its operatives. They have caused your great-grandparents, your grandparents, your parents, your children, severe hardships because of their corruption. And future generations will continue to suffer under Rowley and PNM. Citizens unable to have food at times. 30% of this population not having one meal for the day, and 5% have to skip a day without food. What are they doing about securing your proper health care, education, and serious loss of lives that we hear this evening? Let me give you some of the PNM's corruption and corrupt expenditure in 2015 to 2020, their first term in office. Fake oil. Hundreds of millions have been corruptly stolen. And Rowley, to protect his friend, closed down the whole of Petrotrin. Billions of dollars closed down and lost to protect his friend and to protect the information that would have been available. So he didn't want any information to be found. So he closed down and mashed up Petrotrin. 7,500 people lost their jobs. Over 100,000 people affected. Billions in revenue lost from the refinery closure, and now with the scrap iron. What about the ferry purchase of the Austral and Incat vessels? 1.2 billion without any tender. Rowley gone down to Australia, he say, I want that and I want that. What tendering? We don't know the cost of it. The Cabo Star, the lease for $13 million. The Ocean Flower, lease for $20 million. Rowley himself publicly admitted that there was corruption in the Ocean Flower. $50 million spent on the TT Spirit repair. And where's the TT Spirit now? Manzanilla Highway, 5 miles, $400 million. Diego Martin Sporting Complex, Anil and myself spoke about that recently, $200 million. Tamana Intech Park, $3 billion. $3 billion PNM have spent so far and unoccupied by any university or any IT company. San Fernando Waterfront Project, $500 million. TSTT purchase of Massey, $220 million by PNM friends. PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Ernst & Young, as soon as PNM came into office in 2015, they hired these two companies at $30 million and $30 million each to see what all you could find about corruption amongst UNC people. Up 7 years later, they can't find one damn thing. But 60 million gone. And yet, they hired a team from United Kingdom. They spent $40 million on them, and they still can't find nothing. I forget the lady name. Kate. And she back here again, another 40 million given to them. So 60 plus 40 plus 40, 140 million they spent to see who they could lock up on UNC. That is what they're doing with your money. That is what Rowley is doing. He and a number of people should be considered to be, I don't want to say, I'm cool now. Taruba Stadium. Taruba Stadium was commissioned in 2004 when we had the World Cup cricket in 2007. Lara, what is it? Heyday and so on. They failed to build it in 2007. That was supposed to cost less than 500 million. It ended up costing 1.2 billion. It started in 2007 and finished 10 years later in 2017. That's where all our people now go. 2017, 10 years. 1.2 billion. And then they gave the family of a present minister to hose it down for $100 million. Atlantic LNG train. They spent $400 million to restart it, and then they close it again. So hundreds of billions of dollars corruptly spent, and with allegations against the PNM. What about in 2002 to 2010? $2 billion spent on the summit in 2009. Don't forget that, ladies and gentlemen. 18 billion spent by Malcolm Jones on the World BTL. $18 billion. That Trinidad still has to pay a loan of 950 million US, and with a 9.5% interest. So that going on for almost since 2007. Tobago Hospital was supposed to cost $120 million in 2001. I remember that distinctly, being involved in the health sector. It ended up costing $1.2 billion. And it was the People's Partnership government that had to complete it. Mrs. Kamla Prasad, Bisesa, had to complete it. Manning built a $240 million palace, the Diplomatic Center, with 3 million drapes. You all will remember that. Some of you young, $3 million in drapes for the Diplomatic Center. And Imbert spent $576 million on a rapid rail feasibility study. A feasibility study. People forgetting that in the country now. PNM must be held accountable, and we should never see the PNM ever in this country again. What about the 30 million Mystery Gunapo Church? Calder Hart, $368 million contract to his brother-in-law, and Unicott Calder Hart scandal. So, 30 million bamboo network scandal, 1.8 billion overrun waterfront project, 650 million overrun legal affairs tower, 700 million Chancery Lane complex, 600 million overrun in Sapa, 576 million overrun in Napa, 50 million blimp, which was blind, Sunway Construction, 300 million quarry contract scandal. Red House, 440 million. President House, 89 million. Buku Estate during the Sandals deal, 174 million lost. Prime Minister Tobago residents, 18 million. Stuart Young Brothers finance deals with the state, NCB Global, over 4 billion. China Group International Engineering Company and HDC contract cancelled, 71 million US. Faris Al-Rawi, 20 million per year in rental. Tobago Financial Complex, 18 million cost overrun. Tobago Library, 80 million cost overrun. 50 million for the boat SU, which never float. 45 million secret scholarship fund. PNM chairman's wife, 60 million contract days before 2010 election. Curup interchange, how much was paid for Kedona, and so on. So ladies and gentlemen, there's much more to speak about. I have sent to my colleagues about 10 pages about at least 20 areas of corruption that our party will give to the national population. So we have identified over 200 areas of widespread corruption during PNM's administration.